duty, honor, country dictate what you ought to be, what you can be, what you will be.
The destiny of man is not measured by material computations. When great forces are on the move in the world, we learn we're spirits, not animals.
Now we are the masters of our fate.
Howdy, gents. Welcome back to another episode of the Wolf and Iron podcast. I'm your host, Mike Yarbrough, founder and curator of wolfandiron.com, and I'm glad you're here. I want to talk to you guys today about being the iron. This is going to be a common theme that we're going to be using in Wolf and Iron. We've already done a podcast episode on Feed the Wolf, and this is going to be kind of the second part, the counterpart to that, and you're going to see these themes show up pretty often. And so today's episode is going to be about how to be the right kind of iron for other men, to help sharpen them, and also how to get the right kind of iron in your life and to stop turning away the guys that are going to make you a better man. But before I jump into that, I want to do a quick read of a podcast review. This one comes from J.D. Boss. So JD, if you're out there listening, this one's for you, buddy. He says, great content, that's the title. He says, this is definitely one podcast you should be listening to if you consider yourself a man. That's a pretty strong statement. The content and the lessons are spot on, very encouraging, and the mission statement is one that every man should want to carry on and spread amongst men. JD Boss, you really are the boss. I appreciate that. Guys, if you're listening to the podcast, if you're getting something out of this, do us a favor. Go out and leave a review. That's going to help other guys kind of get an idea of what the flavor of this whole thing is, what we're doing. And it's going to help it get in front of the guys that need to hear it the most. And JD Boss, if you're listening to this, reach out to me. Let me know your address, and I'll send you a little something in the mail. Thanks, man. Okay, so being the iron. Now, even if you're not a Christian, you've heard this, and you've likely agreed with it because it speaks right to the heart of a man. And it comes straight from Proverbs 27:17, and it says, as iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. Now, if you are a Christian, you've probably heard this umpteen thousand times, and sometimes things can kind of lose their effectiveness because we've heard it so many times. But I want to dig into this because I think that there are a lot of aspects of this that we don't really cover when we're talking about iron sharpening iron. We just kind of think of, okay, that's a good and true thing. I need some guys in my life to help me out. But I want you to notice what it doesn't say. It doesn't say a man makes another man. Okay? Let's talk about sharpening for a second. And actually, let's talk about sharpening versus honing. I'm going to give you guys a little education in bladesmanship here. When we talk about sharpening a knife, we're talking about the removal of material. So we're going to put it against another piece of steel, maybe a piece of stone or something like that. You could have something fancy like a diamond file or what have you. But the point is we're removing material when we're sharpening a blade. When we're honing a blade, this is a little different actually. When we're honing a blade, we're actually aligning the steel rather than removing steel. So honing is really more about you've got a really, really nice edge on your blade, but it's just not cutting like it used to. And it really is just because the steel has kind of gotten folded over, rounded up a little bit. And honing just basically realigns things. But sharpening actually removes the metal. But in order to sharpen something, it's got to have a defined edge already. And here's the problem. A lot of guys aren't in the place where they have an edge to be sharpened. You might be one of those guys. You may still be some cold ore that's still being dug out of the earth, and it's got to go through some heat, brother. You've got to go through some heat to get refined and to get made into something that's usable and good. Iron sharpens iron, but it's not up to some other guy to make you. That is called self-work. You guys have got to do that on your own. And I hope that you're doing that in light of who you are as a man of God, and not just going off and trying to make yourself into something that you hope is the image of what a man is, because you're going to end up making yourself into something that doesn't look like the kind of man you want to be or the kind of man you respect. This is really where we need the influence of other men speaking into our lives, but we also need to have an understanding of who we are, that we're actually created for a purpose, and that the goal for us as to the kind of man that we want to be, The kind of iron that we want to be, the sort of edge that we need to have, is one that reflects godly character, not just machismo or whatever the culture's definition of masculinity is today. I hope that makes sense to you guys. So you've got to work yourself to get a defined edge. And the job of another man is to come along and help refine that. He's going to work out some of the character flaws that you have, essentially. Now, the way this works is a lot of times uncomfortable, as you can imagine. I mean, steel doesn't feel anything, but we do. And another problem that guys run into is that they push away any of the iron in their life that would actually file away some of their character and expose the underlying steel and help refine that edge. The guys that are going to call you out on your problems, you push those guys away. Just don't want to get in those relationships. The guy that's sort of blunt with you, you keep those guys at a distance because those guys are, they're just challenging to be around. You don't like to feel challenged. You stay away from the heat in your life. That's actually going to help you get molded into the kind of guy that can actually be sharpened. You guys see where I'm going with this? You've got to work to become something that can be sharpened, and you've got to accept the guys in your life, the men in your life that are going to help put an edge on you. Okay, these are the guys that are purposeful, and what this looks like, it looks like somebody coming along, peering into your life, and giving you feedback in areas that you need to grow. Sometimes it's feedback that you may not want, that you're not looking for. It doesn't always come the right way. It doesn't always come at a little sit down over coffee and you guys are going to chat it out and you're going to have time to think about it. Sometimes you just get called out. And that's okay. We need those kind of guys in our life. Now, here's the other thing. Some of you guys are already made to be the kind of iron that sharpens other men. And you know this. There's something about you that is a refiner. You go into other guys' lives and you begin to see immediately areas where they could use improvement. Now, what you've got to work on is refining yourself, okay, to be able to bring that to somebody's attention in a way that's actually beneficial to them. Okay, you're not trying to nick the blade here. Okay, this is a careful process. If you really want to put an edge on somebody, you've got to have the right approach. And that means you've got to be patient with them, but don't give up being the kind of man that you are. Don't just temper your language and your natural giftings to speak into the life of another man because you're afraid you might offend somebody or because that's not what we do in our culture. No, we need men like you. Okay? We need the guys that are going to call us out on our BS. We need the guys that are going to say, brother, you're putting on some pounds. You're not keeping your commitment to get into the gym or to run or whatever that case is. Now look, if you're on this journey like I am, where you're heeding this high call, you feel this call in your life to become better, to better yourself, you got to understand what the outcome of this is supposed to be. It's not so that you can call yourself a man, that you can look in the mirror and hold your head high. It's not so that you can have just better finances, better success in different areas of life. The goal, guys, is so that you can use your newfound strength in the service of others to help them become better as well. Okay, you're trying to point people, trying to lead people. In other words, you're trying to become the kind of iron that's beneficial to others and that's going to help sharpen other men and women. In other words, you're investing in yourself and you're willing to put up with other people speaking into your life and other men challenging you so that you can turn around and do the same for somebody else. Guys, the goal isn't just to get sharpened. The goal is to be the iron that sharpens. Your strength is of value to this world. I want you to understand that. I want you to take that seriously. The strength that you possess as a man is unique and is valuable in this world and is needed, is desperately needed. Your family needs you, okay? Other families actually need your influence. Other men need your influence. You see, when I talk about feeding the wolf, I'm talking about being mindful of the things that you're taking in that you think are leading you to be the kind of man that you really want to be. That's feeding the wolf. When I talk about being the iron, I'm talking about what you're giving back in the lives of other men and other women and your family. Are you the person who helps sharpen other people? Do you take the time with them? Are you aware of the kind of iron that you are in their life? I mean, another thing that the verse sort of implies for people who have sharpened things before, but may be kind of lost on our society today, is that you can't just take a knife up against a piece of steel and just start, sliding these things back and forth and expect it to get sharp. There takes some skill and precision there. And if you think being the iron is simply just being a loudmouth, is just saying what's on your mind with no filter, okay, just letting people have it and hoping that they kind of take it the right way and maybe do something with it, that's not good either. It is a skill, guys. All right, so if you're being the iron in somebody's life, it's going to sharpen them. They're going to shine brighter than they did before when they were duller. And you're not going to be putting nicks in their blade. You're not going to be dulling their edge. You guys get what I'm saying here? Now listen, there's one more thing I want to talk about. If you guys really want to be honed in, if you want to be properly aligned, if you want to make sure that you're on the right track, you got to go to the rock for that. I'm not talking about Dwayne Johnson, guys. I'm talking about Jesus, okay? Look, there is an example of the kind of man that if you were to follow in his footsteps, you would never be disappointed where you end up. Think about that. Every other man that you look at is flawed in some kind of way. And that's why we kind of pick and choose, be a little bit like this guy. I'll take some of this guy's qualities, this guy's characteristics. I like how this guy speaks. I like how this guy walks, etc., etc. But I'm telling you guys, the example is already there in Christ. And some of you guys are avoiding Jesus because you're associating him with religion. And I get it. I don't like religion either. But you've got to learn to separate the two. You've got to learn to separate Christ from Christians. That's sad to say, but it's true, and it's been true for a very long time. You've got to separate who Christ is from who Christians are. And if you can do that, and you get to know the man, if you get to know the Son of God, I think I'm telling you what, guys, your life is going to be changed, and you're going to find yourself being aligned and being a much sharper man than you ever could be otherwise. All right, fellas, that's all I got today. Go out there, get sharpened up, get honed, and then be the iron in somebody else's life. And until next time, keep your powder dry, and may a fair wind be always in your sails.